From 1878 to 1968, there were 71 lake captains that called Bayview, Wisconsin, on the shore of Lake Michigan, their home. While they lived here, they captained 195 different ships, from tugboats to schooners to steamships, in voyages that took them to every one of the Great Lakes. Join us now for another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we explore not only these captains, but also their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains. Sponsored by the historic Bayview Lake Captains Society. Now today I'm standing in front of Captain Mathew Smith's house, who was the only Bayview Lake captain that immigrated from, wait for it, Denmark. The only one. His first 20 years are basically unknown, but he started out right away sailing on the lakes. And then he moved to Walker's Point and sailed quite extensively for the Interocean Lake Transportation Company. They called it Interocean because back then the lakes were kind of seen as oceans, mini oceans. There was a newspaper out of Chicago called the Interocean that dealt with maritime subjects and reporting. So Mathew Smith comes to Bayview. He's a lake captain. Started out initially like a lot of them, or not a lot of them, but several of them in Bayview, in Walker's Point, and then he moved here. He spent a grand total of, I think it's 43 years on the lakes, and half of that was a lake captain. He captained, is recorded as captaining anyway, exclusively steamships. And he lived here on East Homer Street. So that's it for the introduction. Simon Stanhope will fill you in. We've got photos of the ships coming. You'll like those. And I'll wrap it up by saying hats off to Bayview's lake captains. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Welcome to another installment of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we discuss the lives of the 71 different lake captains that once lived in Bayview, Wisconsin, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in the age of sail and steam. This discussion will include their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes. Here is the map of lake captains' homes in Bayview, to show you where this episode takes place. Its location focuses primarily on the large green arrow. Today we will be discussing the life of Captain Mathew F. Smith, who immigrated from Denmark and spent 43 years sailing the Great Lakes, 18 as a crewman and officer, and 25 as a lake captain for the Interocean Transportation Company, headquartered in Milwaukee. He lived in both Walker's Point and Bayview, where his home was at 509 East Homer Street, and was a steamship captain. Captain Mathew F. Smith was born in March 1858 in Copenhagen, Denmark. He immigrated to America in 1875 at age 17, though his point of entry into the States is unknown. Nothing is known about his parents, except they were Danish, nor is it known if he had any siblings. He later became a naturalized citizen sometime before 1900, though the exact date is unknown. He began his Great Lakes sailing career immediately upon arriving in America. This began aboard a Great Lakes steamship working as a deck boy. The name of this ship, and others he may have sailed aboard during this 18-year period, as well as their location and even Mathew Smith's, are unknown. The year 1893 was perhaps the most eventful of Mathew Smith's life. First he came to Milwaukee and was promoted to captain for the first time, both in the same year. As a veteran sailor of 18 years on the Great Lakes, he would have been in a position to know the shipping companies and promotion opportunities to lake captain, and this may be the reason he came to Milwaukee when he did. Then, upon becoming a lake captain, he proceeded to captain several cargo steamships that included the ships Merrimack, Maryland, and Massachusetts, all owned by the Interocean Transportation Company that was headquartered in Milwaukee. Perhaps the most eventful thing that happened to him in 1893 is he got married to wife Margaret. She went by Maggie. The only documented residence for him during this time, 1893 to 96, was in Walker's Point in 1894. In 1897, Captain Smith moved to 509 East Homer Street in Bayview, and remained there through 1899. He captained the steamship Merrimack for the entire 3 years he lived on East Homer Street. In 1900, Mathew Smith departed his home on Homer Street, and, with his young family in tow, moved back to Walker's Point, though further west. He continued working as a lake captain, living at the same house in Walker's Point until his retirement in 1918. The ships he captained during this period of 1900 to 1918 are not officially documented, but are highly likely to be one or all of the same 3 steamships, Merrimack, Maryland, and Massachusetts. After retiring from being a lake captain in 1918 at age 60, that concluded a 25-year career with the Interocean Transportation Company, and 18 more years before that as a crewman on the lakes, making a total of 43 years sailing on the Great Lakes. Captain Smith became a janitor at an electric shop. In preparation for retirement, he'd paid off the mortgage on his house, so now he could take a lesser job and be home every night for the first time with wife Maggie and their small family. He lived this life for the next 10 years, until he permanently retired from all work at age 72. He and wife Margaret, nicknamed Maggie, were married for 45 years. They had 2 sons, Edward and George. Son George and sister-in-law Mary Caskey lived with Mathew and Maggie in 1920, after Mathew had retired as a lake captain. George continued living with his parents until age 30, but died before both of them. Sometime after 1930, exact year unknown, Mathew and wife Margaret moved back to Bayview into a new house at 3260 South Dayfield Avenue. Captain Mathew Smith remained there until his death on Saturday the 23rd of July, 1938. He is buried in the Smith family plot at Calvary Cemetery in Beloit, Wisconsin. Wife Margaret appears to be buried with him. This family plot being in Beloit may explain where he spent his early years after immigrating and before coming to Milwaukee. Thanks for watching. This photograph isn't about Bayview or its lake captains, but it's from the same era of Great Lakes maritime history. We thought we'd close with it for enjoyment, as it captures the spirit of the era. If you'd like to read more details about Captain Mathew Smith, as well as the sources for the information contained in today's video, you can find these and more in the book Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, for sale now, by individual volumes on both Amazon.com and HenschelHouseBooks.com. All proceeds from book sales go to support various maritime history projects related to Bayview's lake captains. One of these is a plaque and marker with the captains' names and addresses on it as part of the creation of the Bayview Lake Captains Historic District, which will be the first of its kind in America. If you would like to contribute to support these projects, to include this and other markers honouring Bayview's lake captains, with 100% of all donations and contributions in all forms going to support them, please consider contributing to us through the listings found on our website under the Contribute button. Note, we are not a 501c3, so contributions are not tax-deductible. If, for some reason, we are unable to secure these markers, then all funds donated to this site will be given as a cash donation to the museum ship SS City of Milwaukee in Manistee, Michigan. This is the only surviving intact ship that was once captained by a Bayview lake captain, and in its case was captained by at least 2, and likely 3, totaling over 20 years between them. Finally, we also have free self-guided walking tours of Bayview's 71 lake captains' homes, using only your phone. It's simple and easy. Just go to our website shown here, find the item on the menu bar at the upper left named Free Self-Guided Walking Tours, and then scroll down to find the map with instructions. Zoom in by street. When you find a captain's house you're interested in, click on it and details appear on the right, along with a link to the YouTube episode from this channel that provides the biography of the captain that lived there. You can also read about his sailing adventures while living in that particular house by going to the website menu item, Sailing Adventures. These are also included on our website blog. It's free, fun, and available anytime you're out walking. Just bring along your phone. I'm Simon Stanhope, narrator for these episodes. Join us again soon for the next chapter of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains.